advance the science of wellness and fitness, and to bring people that we have in El Paso to the forefront, and to, kind of show the individuals that are out here and the options we have. A lot of people don't know I've been out here for 30 years, and I've seen El Paso kind of develop over the last 3 decades, and I've been nothing but proud to see the young kids and young men that are heading to the fitness programs all around the city, along with the insights that they're bringing from where they come from. People coming from all over the world. We have Olympians, we have specialists, we have top trainers, power trainers, fitness trainers, CrossFit trainers around the world. These individuals bring a huge amount of talent, and they all do the same thing. They get old, and as we get older, they were once the best in the world, and they come back and they share with. If you're an Olympian, what for the youth. So we bring certain individuals that have sciences and technologies, and some people are in the middle of their flight, in the beginnings and in the new starts of their lives, where they're actually bringing some great sciences. Today we have Jeremy McGowan, sorry, and Taylor Lyle. These were 2 individuals that we brought in last time, and we're going to hopefully have them come back and share with us their technologies. Jeremy brings a background. He works in the military. He's a real smart guy. All these kids are real smarter than I am. These are it's a beginning of time where we can see that the knowledge that the military has brought out has brought really great talent from around the world. Jeremy is from Panama City, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And Taylor, where are you from?
Dallas-Fort Worth.
Dallas-Fort Worth. And one of the great things that I love about this whole story is that they're here in El Paso, and a lot of people don't know this, and their expertise and knowledge is not only for us to benefit from, but they're benefiting and they're teaching the people that are here, the military, through their sciences and their techniques and their specialties. And their licenses. So we really, really do have a moment in time where now the world is advancing in El Paso. So what I like to do is I'd like to introduce Kenna Vaughn. Kenna Vaughn, she's over there in the side, so you can see her. She's there. She's anchoring on the side, making sure that my cameras work well and that I don't stutter too much. Then we have Taylor Lyle, and we have Jeremy McGowan, correct? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and what we want to talk about a little bit about fitness training and the ideas specifically about strength training, nutrition, and as it pertains to collegiate sports, and as well as power training for the military. So these kind of sciences are very important for people to correlate. Now, do they cross lines? They cross lines for athletes in high school. So these sciences and these techniques are going to be good. But I'd like to know a little bit about Jeremy today. Jeremy, welcome to the show, bud. And the people out here are watching, and they're interested in understanding what it is that you do. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've done and where you came from, and I'll leave it from there. Go ahead.
So like you said, first I'm from close to Panama City, Florida, a little tiny small town. Went to Troy University on a baseball scholarship. It's a D1 university in Alabama, close to Montgomery, so southeast Alabama. Played there for 5 years. As soon as I got done playing, slid right into coaching. Coached there for a little bit over 3 years. Ran baseball and softball mostly, assisted with other sports, so football, volleyball, soccer, a lot of others. Got offered a job out here to slide into the military side of things, to coach. Couldn't really turn it down. Really, really enjoy what I'm doing here. Running the physical training programs or the PT programs for a battalion at Fort Bliss. So I've worked with 2 separate battalions. We run the PT program, reconditioning program, and we work hand in hand to kind of help write their PT program so that when we're not with them, they have a better idea of what to do.
I got a question for you, and you said that you were an athlete. Going back to that, what position did you play?
I pitched.
You were pitched. Oh, so you're the dude. You're the man, huh?
I was a closer. Started a little bit, but mostly closed. Really just tried to throw as hard as I could. That's about it.
Were you good?
I like to think so. But, some people might tell you different.
Well,
well, don't be modest.
Don't be modest. Yeah, you don't be modest. No, we're not. No. You got to say you're good at what you do. You know what? Where I came from, and I was a little boy, we got to see this. I'm here in Mexico, and we got this guy named Fernando Valenzuela. Remember that guy?
Yep.
Man, he was a Dodgers? Was he a Dodger guy?
Yeah, Dodgers.
Oh, man. I just remember this big, chunky-looking dude that just could rip the ball.
Definitely didn't look like he was a pitcher, but he was really good at it.
No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing that I know now that I didn't know then, that people who've got strong cores can really, really propel their force, right? And this dude had a thick core, and he just busted up some gloves, huh?
Yeah, he did. He was very, very good.
Fernando, it's like Evel Knievel for the kid who runs on jumps. Hey, so let me ask you, what did the military see in you that they wanted to provide for this local community?
So the way that it kind of worked, this whole program started as a very small pilot. There were 5 strength conditioning coaches, and that was the first people on the ground. So that was it. And then it expanded. Now there are 60 coaches across a few bases in the U.S. So basically they needed qualified coaches that had an experience. So they wanted guys that had been a strength coach, 3+ years or whatever, to lead the way. The assistants could have a little bit less experience, but had to be certified, had to have a little bit of experience in the field so that they could get some, guys in to run PT programs that were used to running large groups. So they wanted guys mainly from the collegiate sector because we're a little more used to running large groups. The private sector as well, depending on where they were at. Obviously, if they're, only working there for a very small amount of time, it might not be as much, but they really wanted to focus on the qualifications. So having that master's degree and having that certification was the main thing.
I'll tell you what. I saw it's clearly that you're really, really smart. That both of you guys have resumes that are just amazing, and I got to tell you, the talent that the military brings to this town is amazing. So don't feel shy. Go ahead and tell people you got the big old masters, because that's huge. Because you're only one step away from a PhD. Let me ask you this, because that's very curious. The military has different departments, different battalions. How many people in the battalion?
The one that we were in originally, there was around 410, 450. This one's larger, so there's 5 companies. Each company is comprised of around 100 people. So there's upwards of 550 in the battalion right now that we work with.
I'll tell you what, we're used to running a little bit of a CrossFit center. We're actually coming from the Push Fitness Center, and 20, 30 kids at one time is a lot. How can you manage the largeness or the immensity of those groups together?
We kind of set up circuit style training for the most part, so we try to run stations with them. Luckily, I do have another strength coach. It's not just me, so that helps a lot. We split the group up into 2 normally. We'll run a lifting type station and then a running type station, and one of us will run each. When we get to about the halfway point, we'll switch. So he'll come over. If I'm running the strength training station to begin with, we'll just flip-flop. So he'll bring his group over to the strength training. I'll take my group to the running, and we'll do that for the last half. So we usually have around, I would say tops, around 80 people in a group would be the most that we would have, and we would have 40 and 40 apiece.
Jeremy, so you can pretty much see all these guys in different, I guess, techniques, whether this is a running area, this is a strength area. Mm-hmm. You can see them all in line sight, kind of in the distance?
Yeah, that's the goal. So with the strength training section, we set up kind of a semicircle of a station so that I can just walk around the semicircle and be able to see everyone. And then as far as the running goes, it's normally we do more anaerobic style training, so more sprint type work, so that we can be right there telling them, running their rest times, telling them, what time we're trying to beat on the run, whatever it might be, so that we can actually manage it a little more.
Wow. Taylor, we're going to get with you in a second there, so go ahead and drink some water. We're going to get to you in a minute there. But I got to ask a question for you. When you look at, as a strength coach, you have a deep-seated philosophy in the way things are done, and I assume, and I don't know, it seems like your beginnings with baseball, correct? Mm-hmm. How do you apply that science and the level of mechanical sciences to the different kind of levels and different type of specialties in the military? Let's say you got some, I don't know what kind of things they do. Let's say the mechanics versus the heavy-duty artillery gunners. How do you change that up for them?
So one thing that's really, really changed over for me with baseball to this is, obviously with baseball, I'm working with a lot of overhead throwing athletes. So a lot of shoulder problems, a lot of shoulder stability, things like that I was really trying to work with. Something that I've noticed in this military sector because of the way they've trained for so long, they have a lot of shoulder injuries. There's a lot of shoulder problems, a lot of instabilities as far as they're way overcompensating. Their shoulders are starting to round from doing push-ups for so many years and not getting the proper training along with that. So having that expertise on that side of things has helped me a lot. As far as training, different types of people. So I work in a BSB right now, so I haven't really worked a whole lot with infantry type people. BSB? It's a brigade support battalion.
Okay, gotcha.
So we have a lot of mechanics, medics, communications people. It's not a whole lot of high-speed guys. So we're not really working with a lot of infantry-type people. We're not working with a lot of guys that are really, really out there and really, really active. So a lot of the times the people that we work with, the main things that we're working on is landing mechanics, proper lifting technique, because we do have guys that have to lift some heavier stuff with transport and stuff like that. And then landing mechanics, guys jump out of trucks all the time. They're in big, tall trucks, whatever it might be. So those two things are something that we really try to work on so that in their day-to-day jobs, they don't get hurt.
You know, when you say landing mechanics, whether it's volleyball or anything, that's got to be almost second nature, huh?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've seen that in the last last decade or two, I see the philosophy changing in the military, specifically in their ideas and their fitness goals. Recently, they've done some changes in their new programs where they actually, if you don't pass these certain things, you don't even get the vacation time or even have time to or migrate up in the ranks based on this performance. I've heard a lot about this ruck thing. What is this ruck thing? I heard, how much weight is it? Because they don't care if you're a 180-pound person or a 95-pound lady, they're still going to carry the same weight.
So there's different size rucksacks. It can be depending on really what your unit wants for that day or what type of thing you're doing. So I'm sure you might have heard of the Baton Death March that happens here once a year.
Yes, I did.
So there are two separate standards for that. There's a military light and a military heavy. The rucksacks are different. I don't remember the exact weight, but I want to say it's 40 and 80 pounds.
Okay.
If I remember right. Could be wrong on that, but it's somewhere around that. And so that's the light standard and the heavy standard. As far as what they do in a normal setting for a rucksack, they kind of set it up for themselves. So basically, if a unit's going on a ruck, they might tell you, hey, load it with as much as you want. Here's how long we're going. Be able to do this in this fast. So they get to kind of pick their rucksack weight depending on what they can handle.
Is it 40 through 80 or 40 and 80?
So in the Baton, it's 40 and 80.
Okay.
But if they set it up themselves, they could do 40 through 80. It's just depending on what they want to run with.
Yeah, and you know what? What do you look for in terms of an individual in order for them to say, "Oh, this dude's going to just kind of wreck his back, or he's going to mess his shoulders up"? How do you tweak it so that you can kind of help them not get injured?
Yeah, so posture is a big part of it. Again, a lot of guys have rounded shoulders, so that translates over into the ruck as well. When they've got a heavy rucksack on their back, they start to hunch over, round their back. Their shoulders are already rounded, so you're putting a lot of stress on the back, which I know you're kind of the guy for that.
Oh my gosh, I live with that every day. That's yeah.
You know, so,
oh, you mean how we treat people? Yeah.
With your treatment. So
I thought I was hunched over.
No, with your treatment. So, you know, I mean, you know what that can do to a back. And, you know, so there's an issue that we try to fix. We do a lot of pulling, a lot of rows, a lot of rear delt work to try to get those shoulders back right and stop the hunching, stop the rolled shoulders. So that's one thing that we try to do. And then again, as far as the lower body goes, proper gait is something that we try to work on. The PTs work on that a little bit more than we do, but proper running mechanics, proper gait can obviously help with a lot of hip, ankle, knee issues that a lot of guys have when they're out there because they're on uneven terrain a lot of times rucking. They're wearing their boots. You know, they're not in necessarily the best running gear. So we try to do as much as we can to combat the problems that can cause.
I find this to be so amazing that the both of you guys are here. Taylor, I know that you guys work together, and I know we were introduced with you and the vast amount of expertise that you have and shared with us last time. But how do you guys interact? How does the diet world and the physical training world work together with Jeremy's dynamics?
Yeah, so we work hand in hand. I mean, you really can't train without nutrition. So I'm out there a lot of times at the PT sessions, whether I'm trying to participate myself or just help the soldiers. So, you know, just making sure that they eat something in the morning. That's a big issue that we see is that they don't have enough energy. And they wonder why they can't, you know, finish their workout sometimes. So, you know, that is something that we both preach. And then making sure that they eat something afterwards, whether it's going straight to breakfast or they're getting some type of post-workout recovery modality. So, so we work with that. And then, you know, I do quite a bit of one-on-one counseling. And so a lot of times when I'm meeting with a variety of soldiers, you know, strength and conditioning comes up in my conversation, and we do a referral system. So I'll refer them to Jeremy, and, follow up with him. And then, a lot of times he'll meet with them individually, give them a training program. And so we constantly are in communication with the best practices and, how do we work towards the common goal.
Jeremy, in terms of when you look at someone and you see them that just they need help, they just are, this kid is he means well, but you can see him falling apart because you get that instinct like this kid's going to blow out of something. He's just not there. He looks ashy. He's not eating well. How do you bring in Taylor in this dynamics in that situation?
So a lot of the times I can really see it closer to the end of a workout. Like she said, their energy levels are just low. They can't even, during the break period, they're sitting down, they're laying down, they're trying to drink something and they can hardly drink because their stomach's upset. So I can tell pretty quickly if somebody has not eaten or is struggling with the nutrition side of things. And if that's the case, then I'll tell them, hey, we've got a dietitian, we've got somebody that can help you. I can help a little bit in terms of telling you need to eat something before you come out here, but she can help you, in a better way than I can.
Do you guys coordinate a little bit? Kind of like, this is going to be a rough one, okay? We need to, this is they're going to be a lot of them on the floor today.
There's some times that we can tell. I can tell when I set up the circuit, like, okay, these guys are going to get broke off a little bit. And especially if the ones that I look at and know that she's talked to, I'd make sure with them before those days, hey, did you eat anything? And if not, then, I'll try to help them out as much as I can, like take breaks, make sure you eat something next time though, because this is how the sessions are going to continue to be for right now.
Guys, can you feel what I'm seeing, guys? I got to tell you, when I started here in 1991, literally the military treated, from my vantage point, again, I'm civilian and I don't have to follow the rules, but like they're set up there, but I could sense that the world was like Full Metal Jacket. It was real intense. It was a real harsh environment. And as you can tell, these two individuals are the forefront of the military to this day. So one of the things is I have to ask you both one question. Do you guys care about your guys?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Course.
You know what? I got to tell you, you know what? I see this from the captains now. The world in the military is totally pro their people in a way that I have never seen. Go back 3 decades ago, in 1991, I could not even get my hands on a military patient. They just would not let anyone outside the military take care of the people. Today, you guys are you in the military, both of you?
No.
No.
We're both civilian contractors. Yeah.
Contractors see that the world, they're bringing in the outside world. They're also letting the inside go out. It's awesome to see that, because from my point of view, the caring that's involved had to move from the top down, and to have you guys from around the world, there's got to be some amazing crew of people recruiting you guys. And I got to tell you, it makes me very proud, because from the senators, that actually made the Fort Bliss to become as big as it is now, and as it's moved up, you see a lot of kind, caring sergeant, colonels, commanders that really care about their people. And I got to tell you, it makes me feel real cool from an individual out there, because I got a kid who's your age, right? So you guys got to, you guys taking care of them. So it's a great thing. Let me ask you, in terms of focusing on the dynamics of, let's say, over shoulder. You had mentioned that shoulder thing, okay? Going into that particular areas. Now, for my vantage point, I'm a real lover of the shoulder girdle and the way the word and how it works together. When you put something on the shoulder, back in the day, there was one thing that really destroyed everyone's shoulder. People didn't realize this was this military, not military, it was like a football jacket that had weights on it, and they'd load it up in the front and the back, and you could put on, some weights on it. These people had shoulder problems because of the pressure on the acromion, on the clavicle, and this happened. How is it that you kind of prevent a shoulder injury in terms of what you've seen when they wear things that are compressing them like a rucksack?
So part of that is the way they wear their rucksack. Our PTs do a really good job of demonstrating to them the proper technique of how to wear a rucksack, how to tie it down the right way so that it's not putting a lot of pressure on their shoulders. That's not something that necessarily I do, but that's one way of combating it. As far as my role in it, I'm really just trying to strengthen the whole shoulder girdle, and that whole area, the upper back, the upper traps, whatever it might be, to try to take some load off so that they have a little bit of a shelf or something to sit it on. So we do a lot of like I said, rear delt work. We do a lot of rotator cuff work and a lot of trap work as well, so that they do get a little bit of that shelf.
All right. Well, that gives me a good understanding as to what's going on. I want to know the difference between a NCAA Division I athlete and the military athlete. How do you go about training? And we'll start like, what are the similarities? And we're going to try to look at the differences too, to contrast specifically in that science. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about what you do with your philosophies.
So similarities wise, I would say the main things are their want to. A lot of times the military guys, the ones that are a little more high speed, they really want to get after it in PT, right? So they're wanting harder sessions. They want to sweat. They want to feel like they got something done. The NCAA guys are the same way. You know, they don't want to come in and do one exercise and be done. They want to lift heavy. They want to get big. They want to get strong. And it's the same way here. The only issue is here the training age is so much lower as compared to an NCAA Division I athlete. So when I would get a guy at college, 18-year-old, but he came straight out of a high school that was a 6A, 7A, 5A high school, some bigger school, played football for 4 years. He's been working out since he was in 8th grade. These guys come here, and I've got a lot of people that are 30 years old that didn't play sports in high school that have been in the military since they were 18, and they've been training wrong for 12 years since they got in the military. So their true training age is really nothing. They don't really have good movement patterns. They don't have an idea of really how to lift. They don't have an idea of the right way to warm up, the right way to cool down, anything like that. So it's a lot more teaching here as compared to I could really get up and running at a Division I school like I was at in about 3 or 4 weeks. I was up and running, had guys going full speed almost. And here it's a lot of teaching.
Jeremy, do you work with the reserves also?
I do not. So we're just with the active duty.
The active duty guys?
Yeah, we're just
okay.
with.
So you mentioned 30 years old. Okay, how does that work? And what's your approach for a 30-year-old versus an 18-year-old that's got to do the same procedure?
The 18-year-olds are a little bit easier to teach. Their movement patterns are a little bit easier to pick up on because they haven't been doing it wrong for so many years, right? So if an 18-year-old, and this is true across any population, whether it's military or whatever, these guys, it kind of sticks a little faster, right? So you teach them something 2 or 3 times and they might have it. Whereas this 30, 35-year-old guy that's been doing this movement, but he's been doing it wrong for 12 years, when you try to teach him the correct way to do it, it might take 8, 10, 12, 15 sessions for him to finally get it down. And the issue with that is because of how many people are in the battalion, we might only get 1 or 2 sessions with him a week. So it might take 4 months for him to finally get this movement pattern down, and that slows down a lot of people in the process.
Do you separate them to kind of keep them in a different sack or direction?
So we try to. The issue with that is they're in, if you've got one guy in Bravo company and one guy in Alpha company that are in the same boat, they don't really do PT together. So it's hard to separate within the same company those people because you might get that company once or twice a week. So if I'm really trying to separate the guys that are picking up on it and the guys that aren't, the groups are going to be either really small or they're just going to stop coming because they're not getting enough out of it.
Taylor, in answering that same question, when you see those young kids that and versus the older, or how do you approach the diet changes as well as just the approach of nutrition for them going through the same process in terms of the program?
Yeah, so kind of like just what Jeremy said, the 18-year-old scenario, they typically they want to get better. They want to do whatever it takes to make it to the next level, which would be professional. And so I feel like their strive to want to get better, they're a little bit more intuitive to that and receptive. The 30-year-old, it's not that they aren't receptive, but a lot of them will have a family, whether that's a spouse and children, and so that you have to take other factors that may be out of their control to have this success. So really just in both scenarios, the education component, there is so much room to grow, unless someone maybe went through like Ranger School, a little bit more elite on the tactical side, they might be a little bit more in tuned to the nutrition and already know what to do around training and recovery. So they might not need as much education and guidance, but definitely there's a lot of room to grow in both collegiate and military setting for nutrition.
All right, we're going to throw it to another gear here. Now we're dealing with, in my thought process, as you take these young men to the next level, you're going to deal with some elite guys, and that's where a lot of my kids here, the Division I athletes, they correlate. And I got to tell you, from what I've seen, because I treat quite a few of those strange cats that go off to their journeys and they go into their the jungles. These are different kind of characters. They have different mindsets, and they are at the highest level. Some of these guys are literally in their late 30s, and they're just like, you can see it in their eyes. They're just ready to go climb trees, get in the jungle. These individuals, these elite, these tactical guys, these ones that have percolated up to the highest level. How do you work with those individuals, and what do you do in terms of trying to maintain them at their sharpest level?
So those guys are a little bit more, obviously, like you said, they're high speed. So they are more like working with a Division I athlete. Honestly, there's been strength and conditioning coaches in the special ops side of things for years and years. They're a lot more in tune with that side of things, with knowing the proper technique, knowing how things are really supposed to work, and knowing how they're supposed to feel. So, if they have a problem, they're a lot more likely to either know if it's pain or an actual injury. They can actually handle the two of them, whereas guys that are not used to working out, to them, having pain and being sore the day after a workout, they're hurt. These guys are a little more in tune with their body, and they're a lot more likely to be able to push themselves through your workouts. So you can go a lot heavier with them. You can do more of a, true tier-based or strength-based or whatever it might be program that you want to do to get them better and better.
When I was going to college, there were these programs that came out, strength training programs, where you could actually calculate how strong an individual was if they followed this tier. Go through these many deadlifts, do it this way, do it these reps, and over time, you were going to go in a linear progression upwards. It was amazing that you could actually do it that way. Do you feel that if you push these athletes, you watch them improve, especially the top tier ones, that you can actually push them to, an amazing level of accomplishment with tough training?
Yeah, I think so. With the way their schedule works, so there's a lot of different ways to train. There's a lot of different types of training as far as the way you want to lay the program out. For them, like you said, the linear progression that you're speaking of, that's kind of the way to go for those guys. So you might get them for an 8-week period, and then they might redeploy, right? Or they might be on a mission, and the mission might only be 2 weeks long, but during that mission, they're not focused on strength and conditioning. They're focused on their mission. They're getting it done. So, when they come back, there's kind of got to be a reset. So you can't really get into a true tier-based system. You can't really get into a true conjugate method system. You can't do things like that because of how their schedule lays out, because of their battle rhythm. So that linear progression with them is really the way to go, in my opinion. And you can really ramp up the intensity and hopefully, have enough time to ramp up the intensity and get them ready for their next mission.
You mentioned something about a conjugate system. What does that mean?
So conjugate is Louis Simmons' West Side Barbell. It's a full body deal. It's dynamic effort, max effort, and rep range effort. So basically the max effort is absolute strength, right? So you're going to get a high weight for a low amount of reps. The dynamic effort is more of your power type stuff. So it would be more of your, maybe your cleans, your snatches. It can be a lot of different things, but those are just things that naturally come to mind with those. So it's a lower weight, but also a lower rep. You're trying to focus on high speed, so you're moving that as fast as you can. And it can be done with your power lifts as well. It can be done with bench, deadlift, whatever. And then your rep range is more of your high rep. So that's when you're getting more into that bodybuilding reps. So you're going to 8 to 15 reps at that little bit lower weight. You're really working on that hypertrophy and focusing on the pump, really. There's
a lot of theories here, and I can see that you have at your literally at your fingertips, depending on who you're doing and who you're working with. I got to be honest with you. When I first started fitness training, there were very few theories. 4 theories. One was you pyramid, maintain strength, just to do for reps, and to negatives and these kind of things. There's millions of ways to train someone in agility, and lots of ways to do a repetition. Taylor, in terms of, let's go to the mind of those extreme athletes. You know, these are the guys that they know their body. Okay, how do you supplement or help them in terms of nutrition so that they can be the best that they can be? How do you tweak their amazing dynamics?
Yeah, so it all depends on just their needs and overall goals. You know, the elite and tactical, sometimes some of their training, they're purposely, you know, having a deficit in calories, which is causing an extreme weight loss, right? So it's part of their preparation for some missions. And so that can be difficult. But a lot of times, you know, you're just trying to optimize performance and health. So they're normally training at larger volumes and longer duration. So with that, you know, the energy needs are going to go up. So the caloric needs are going to be higher. You know, some can be as high as 4,000 to 5,000 calories in a day versus someone that might not train as much might be more along the lines between 2,000 and 3,000. So really just making sure that they, one, are meeting their energy needs. And then two, you know, if someone's trying to get, you know, gain weight, just maybe stay the same weight, lean up a little bit with leaner mass, you know, then we'll definitely look at things like, okay, how's your protein intake? Is it adequate? Carbohydrates also play a big role in that as well. So making sure that they have good fiber and whole grains. And then also, you know, just making sure they have all their micronutrients as well. So that's what, and fat obviously plays a role. So, you know, you look at everything. You look at all the macronutrients, you look at the whole diet, and just making sure that they have their timing right. So timing's really important as well.
Guys, you guys can answer this. You know, you're bringing a science to this thing.
Yeah.
Do you guys get the inside scoop in terms of the BIA's, BMI, body composition of each individual, or is it something that you just kind of look on the outside and say, this dude, you know, he's fit versus this guy's BMI is at, you know, 40 or something?
So the military, and that's with all the branches, their indicator for health is the BMI. So they have a height and weight for each height and age, male, female. And so if they make that table, that standard, then they're considered healthy. If they do not, then we have to, the Army does taping with the battalion that we're with. So we would tape them, you know, it's the different measurements, normally the waist and the neck, and then hips for females. So that would be for both genders. And so then we would, from there, put that in an equation, and it would spit out a body fat percentage. So we would go from there and say if they were healthy or unhealthy weight. And that is what the military does.
Jeremy, how do you look at that stuff? And are you privy to that information, and do you apply it to the flight that you're doing?
So I don't really get the actual numbers. Taylor's the one that gets those numbers, and she would just share with me, hey, you know, this guy might need a little extra help, you know, as far as losing some weight goes. This guy is in the standards. He wants to gain a little bit of weight, and he can, you know, that kind of thing, whatever it might be. So I don't get the actual numbers, but I do get some information from her that I can help the guys with.
You know, one of the things that we realize in healthcare is unification of data as well as integration of other sciences. You two guys met at a, obviously I'd like to know a little bit about how you guys introduced yourselves and how did you guys interact, and how did you, because Taylor, you kind of talked to me about Jeremy, and I got to tell you, Jeremy seems to be an amazing guy that's got a lot of knowledge, and I really appreciate that. But how did you guys get to interact together? How did that process go in terms of for the purpose of the military?
Yeah, so yes, Jeremy is an excellent strength coach, and it's been a pleasure working with him. We actually work for two different contract companies, so we just were put together by chance, to be honest. And I mean, we just really clicked since day one. Our personalities meshed really well, so that's really where it began. And Jeremy's been here for almost 2 years. I've been here for almost a year, so he's been here a lot longer than me, but so we met when I started.
Gotcha. In terms of the your overall goals for the military and the dynamics for the athletes, let's go back into the world of a little bit of the athletic Division I. And now let's also consider the fact that the sciences you have can also be applied to even the general public and even to kids at that level. And I know a lot of my patients have parents out there that want their kids to benefit from the best ideas and philosophies. And one of the things is that you realize that it's not so much about knowledge. It's about philosophy. It's about your point of view. It's the way you stand and what you think about. How can we take what the military does in its sciences and its progression sciences to get these athletes and these individuals ready for battle to our kids? How can we apply that? If you can kind of reach into, I don't know if you got kids, but if you do deal with kids, how would you apply those sciences to even the young high school, younger people population?
So I actually, one of my papers or whatever for my master's was about strength training in kids, because it was something that really, really interested me. Because all my life I heard kids shouldn't lift weights, kids shouldn't do this, it stunts their growth, it does, it's bad for them, whatever. And honestly, everything that you read research-wise says otherwise. That's just been a myth that's been out there for so long that people started to believe it. So for me, as far as translating my side over to the general population, to younger kids, all the way up to high school, it honestly starts with GPP, which is just general physical preparedness. So being able to handle their body weight, being able to learn movement patterns. So obviously push-ups, pull-ups, things like that for body weight, but then movement patterns on the squat, the landing mechanics like we talked about, things like that. And then just the general agility and movement stuff. So playing tag, doing things that are actually active outdoors.
What age group are you talking about right now?
This is a younger age group. So when they were starting, like, 8, 10, 12 years old, the younger kids that are just getting into the sports age, and them learning those movement patterns and things like that when they get to that age is extremely, extremely important. And then, once
so let's wait. So hold on.
Yep.
So in essence, my son's going to be a wrestler, and he's 5 years old, right? Take me through what you would, as a parent, kind of guide me through what you should put him. Should under a squat rack, or are we tumbling class?
So it doesn't necessarily even have to be a tumbling class. I definitely wouldn't put him in a squat rack yet.
That's what I'm talking about.
But there can be some things that are done to teach the movement patterns. So have him just practice squatting and making sure the knees are pointing out over the toes. He's not getting valgus knee. It's not caving in. He's not, when he's walking, his gait pattern's good. When he's running, his gait pattern's good. When he's planting his foot to, stop and go playing tag with his friends, he's, actually planning, sinking into that hip and driving off. There's little tiny things that you can look at that can help with those movement patterns as they get older, and hopefully combat the chances of injuries as they get older. And then as they get older and those movement patterns are more ingrained, then you can start adding some weight to stuff. You can start doing, even just goblet squats is where I would start. So a kettlebell or a dumbbell holding a single thing, so you're not actually loading the spine, things like that, and floor press and, med ball throws and different things like that where you're adding weight. Once those get learned and more ingrained, then you can start getting into the bigger lifts. You get to the big three, the squat, bench, deadlift, the Olympic lifting type stuff, whatever it is.
Taylor, he is good, huh? He
Yeah,
does know. He does know. Hey, Kenna, what do you think about little Lincoln and the future one?
My poor child. He's 1, almost 2, and he falls all the time. And I was like, gosh, little kids fall. Well, his gait is off, and his poor little knees rub together, so he trips himself constantly. So we put him in gymnastics because we wanted to get him obviously involved in sports and everything that you were just saying. But yeah, and so I never thought of, as a parent, I just thought if you put them in sports, they'll just naturally, learn it. But it's a great thing that you're talking about gait, because so many parents don't know. I didn't know. I just thought my kid was clumsy.
He mentioned something on the passing. He talked about loading, specifically about landing on his legs. When you teach someone how to land properly, you really prevent knee injuries, hip injuries, back injuries. We see it all the time. For example, in our world, we deal with setters. Setters are usually the smart people. They migrated to the quarterbacks of the team, but they typically pivot and they twist and they arch. From what I gather in the book called The Gene of Sports Gene, a setter can actually see the weakness in the other team in less than 500th of a second, and really has to fire the ball back and land it with the individual that they need to strike the ball. But in that process, if they land wrong on the more forward landing, they put a huge amount of burden on their knees. And we have a lot of people with patellar issues, infrapatellar issues. And one of the things is that we try to teach them. Now they're smart. They're 17-year-olds with an attitude, right? And you got to teach them to settle down on their back end and load the balance. How do you take an athlete who's already ingrained in their sciences and reteach them to do something that is not natural, which is load their body properly? How do you do that?
So for me, I usually start with a simple squat, right? Because when you land, or if you're jumping and landing, you're going to land in a squat. You're landing a little bit of a quarter squat, not necessarily a full squat, but trying to make sure, hey, when you squat, here's what it's supposed to look like. This is also what it's supposed to look like when you're landing. If they're still having trouble with the landing thing, we'll start with a really small drop. So we might get a 6-inch box, and it's, hey, step off of this and land correctly. You're not jumping, you're stepping and you're falling. I want you to work on landing correctly. So if they can get that down, then we work to, hey, all right, now we're going to jump up onto the box, and you're going to land correctly up on the box, because if you're jumping up onto a soft box, you're obviously taking a little bit of the burden off, right? So you're not putting as much stress on their knees, even though they're actually jumping now. Once that gets done, it's okay, let's jump off of this taller box, progress that, and that's how we kind of progress it until we get to the point where I feel comfortable enough that I can put them out and say, hey, you can do whatever you want, your landing techniques are correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you ever have problems with people wanting to do that? Like, do they kind of fight you thinking it's dumb, or they don't want to waste their time doing it because they don't see the value? Or do you usually have people who understand where you're coming from and are willing to work through that?
So I was lucky enough at Troy, the university I was at. I played there and slid right into coaching. So the guys that I coached knew that I kind of practiced what I preached, right? So they would listen to me pretty quickly. Same way with the softball team. I knew a lot of them when I played, so same way there. Here, it's been the same way, really. They're all new to what I'm doing, and, I kind of throw out some sciencey terms at them. They see I know what I'm talking about, and they just trust it. So, right. I've been lucky enough to not have much pushback in that area. I know it can happen, and, if it does, my advice would just be try to explain to them in layman's terms, just kind of slow it down for them, make them understand, hey, I'm trying to make sure you don't get hurt. And try to go from there.
Taylor, you're talking. This is amazing stuff in terms of its dynamics and specifically for recovery. How do you guys play into kids or young men that are injured in the nutrition component? How do you help them? How do you support the dynamics from the nutrition component? I know we talked about it a little bit, but can you go back into it and talk about the things that you look at the micronutrient level as well as the macronutrient level to get these guys to be able to sustain the loads that they're going to be under and provide them their best option?
Yeah, so it goes back to recovery nutrition, the nutrient timing, and making sure, you're breaking down your muscles when you're working out and you're trying to build them back up, grow. And so, what's going to do that is protein and carbohydrates. So making sure you have a 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein, that's going to help them replenish their stores, their energy stores, and also build muscle. And then from an injury standpoint, it's just, again, making sure that depending on the injury, will depend on the prescription for nutrition, but overall you want to make sure that they have enough energy needs first and foremost. They're going to be less active typically, so you might not need as high of calorie needs that they would when they would be training. Same with carbohydrates. It is your primary energy source, but you're not going to be training as hard, so typically that is going to be lower. Now your protein needs are going to be almost twice as high as they normally would be to really make sure that you're getting the growth and nutrients you need for the protein and for the muscles to just recover from the injury. And then fat also plays a huge role as well. So, and then micronutrients, you're going to look at, your B vitamins, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin A, magnesium. Those are all going to help in the wound healing, injury recovery aspect as well. And then also immune support, which is really important.
Jeremy, thank you. But Jeremy, they're leaving now the day. They're all exhausted. They're all whooped on, right? What are the words of advice that you give them about what they're going to eat tonight? And let's say you got an individual that's they just look bad. And what do you tell them? How do you tell them to recover? I guess is a good word.
So for me, I'd try to preach high carb, high protein once after. So obviously, like she said, protein plays a big part in the recovery side of things. And they just depleted a lot of their carb sources during the workout. So that's really what I try to preach. Our sessions are in the morning, so a lot of times they've barely eaten anything like we've made mention to before. And if they have, it's a lot of times not enough. So I try to preach, hey, go to the DFAC, get food, get oatmeal, get whatever you can, get some carb sources, get some protein, get some eggs, get an omelet. They make you omelets in there. I know they do because I've been in there. Eat one, get something that can actually help you recover from this workout.
You mentioned they would sometimes show up without eating properly. That's a problem with a lot of the athletes. So they're especially the younger ones. They want to look good. For some of the ones like in volleyball, but some wrestlers, they gotta have the basics too. And for different types of athletes, different things. For the population that you're dealing with, in order to get them better, what is the baseline good level of carbohydrates, and what type of drinks or what kind of foods do you offer or recommend them at least get in that much so that they don't end up totally running and being depleted by the end of the program?
So they'll need 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate, 30 minutes up to an hour right before working out. And like Jeremy said, a lot of times the workout's at 6:30 in the morning. So you're not going to have the ideal scenario where people are eating 3 hours a meal before they, train. So
when you I'm sorry. So when you said that 30 to 60 grams, so 120 to 240 calories just to start up the engine, right? Is that right? Is that a good fare?
Yeah, so that is fair. So what that looks like is 30 grams could be a banana.
Okay.
Or it could be a couple slices of toast. You typically want something that is going to digest very well. So that's going to be low in protein, low in fat, and low in fiber. So that is going to be a carbohydrate source. You're going to want to isolate that to carbohydrate to avoid any digestion issues. So for people that can't handle solid foods as well, I always recommend liquid. It's already converted. So something as simple as a 20-ounce Gatorade. If they can take something a little in between solid and liquid, applesauce pouch. There's so many varieties at the grocery store now for kids or adults. And, just taking one of those applesauces will also help meet that need.
As you start your training program in the morning, what kind of things how do you ramp up the training program, Jeremy? I'd like to know a little bit about that. Like, take me through a day in your world.
So with ramping it up goes, like I said, we might get guys once or twice a week. So it's a very, very slow process. It's also dependent upon their battle rhythm. So, we might get guys, say, twice a week. Say we do happen to get a group twice a week, which is what we were at the old battalion. We get every company twice a week. We might get them for 6 weeks, and then they're gone for 3 weeks doing a field training exercise, and they completely detrain, right? They're doing nothing but sitting there for a lot of the time and, practicing military type stuff. They're not getting any physical training in. It's not mandatory out there. It's not necessary, so nobody does it. And they can't really shower, so nobody really wants to get sweaty and stuff, right? So at those 3 weeks, when they come back, we kind of have to reset. So there's not really that much of a ramp up. It's a lot of general physical preparedness stuff. We do a lot of body weight stuff, and then a lot of the big three. We try to progress those as much as we can. So like right now, because we just kind of restarted with this battalion with the whole COVID thing going on, we're doing a lot of goblet squats. We're doing trap bar deadlifts are extremely important. That's going to be in their new PT test.
What was that? Was that again?
Trap bar deadlift.
Trap bar deadlift.
Hex bar, trap bar, different names for it. But we do that. And then right now we're doing floor press. And we're planning to progress the goblet squat into a front squat to back squat, right? So that'll be the progression there. The floor press will progress into the bench press.
Are those the three that you're talking about? The three?
Yeah, so those are kind of the big three is your deadlift, your squat, and your bench. So that's your main three strength lifts, right? That's what everybody wants to be good at. So that's the three that we kind of focus on, but we'll set up circuits around that. So if we're doing say a floor press, right? We'll try to do some kind of a pull with that, whether it's a rear delt or an actual row. So it might be a kettlebell row, dumbbell row, something like that. And then we'll do a lower body exercise with that. So we try to go full body every workout session. So we're getting upper, lower, and core. We try to do the main lift is for strength. So if it's floor press, squats, or deadlifts, it's more of your strength-based stuff. So it's more of that max effort. So it might be sets of 4, sets of 5, something like that with a heavier weight. We try to work up to a heavy load. And then everything else is more hypertrophy based. So it's more work capacity. We're trying to do, a little bit of a lighter weight, but it's still going to be heavy enough to where it makes them work for those 8 to 12 to 15 reps, whatever we might do.
Do you mix it? Like, do you have some hypertrophy versus agility and versus body mechanic stuff? Or do you have like certain days? Today's body mechanic day. Today is power day. Today is hypertrophy day.
So right now, because we don't really know what group we're going to get every day with stuff going on. So they're kind of working shifts. They're not there every day. So we might have one group one day. It might be the same exact people, for a full week. It might be they come every other day. So the plan right now basically is we go up there, we set up 3 lifts. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are lift days. Tuesday, Thursday are more run days. So and like I said, the running is more anaerobic stuff, so sprint stuff. But on those sprint days, we do more like we do lift more, but it's more body weight, work capacity stuff. So we'll do a lot of push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, squats, lunges, but it's all body weight type stuff. And that'll be all in a circuit with some running involved. And then on the lift days, it's, like I said, that one lift is strength. Everything else is more hypertrophy / work capacity. So it's all high reps. And it's kind of tough to get a lot of hypertrophy type stuff in because of the box that we're working out of. So we have a gym that's inside a box. You have to pull all the weight out. There's not really enough weight to load up a lot of stuff. If we want to do a lot of, squats, we need weights for that, right? So we need weights to put on the barbell. Well, there's only 845s, 835s, 825s, and 810s. So if I have 4 stations of squats set up, I need almost all of that weight to be able to handle that. So I can't use that weight on anything else, whether it's the sleds, the trap bars, whatever it might be. So I have to come up with stuff with bands and kettlebells is really all I
see an invention there. I think there's an invention in there. And what I'm hearing is that your gym doesn't go out to the outside that easy. So is that what I'm getting? Like, you want to be able to have a piece of equipment that has all your stuff on it, so just drag it off that thing.
So it has everything in it. It's not enough stuff to be able to run a lot of like really heavy lifts. It's got plenty of equipment in it to be able to run whatever I need as far as the types of lifts. I mean, I can do everything I need out of it. I even lift out of it when I get done with those sessions that I run. So it's got everything you need in there. It's just if I have a large group, I don't have enough true weight to be able for them to get a lot of absolute strength lifts in. So we have to kind of pair strength and hypertrophy together.
I like it. How do you differentiate the aerobic versus anaerobic? When do you make that switch? And where do you see, at this point, I'm going to throttle this person out of anaerobic to aerobic now?
So the aerobic stuff, we really don't do a lot of, honestly, for ourselves. They do a lot of that on their own. So like the group that we trained today, I heard them say as they were leaving that they were running tomorrow for PT. They're running 5 miles, I think, right? So if they're running 5 miles tomorrow, when they come back to me on Thursday, I'm not going to do more aerobic work with them. It's going to be more anaerobic based. And if we only get everybody once a week, that means 4 days. They're on their own. 2 of those 4 days, I can guarantee you they're going to run. So I'm not going to do more aerobic stuff with them when they need more anaerobic type stuff, especially transitioning into the new PT test that's coming in.
When you say the new PT test, what is that you kind of foresee? What is the foreshadowing of that one?
So it's going to change. The APFT is just a run, sit-ups, and push-ups, right? So the new PT test is a trap bar deadlift. It's a sprint drag carry, which is a 25-meter lane that involves 5 exercises. It's still push-ups, but it's a med ball power throw as well, so working a little more power in there. And leg tucks, which is going to be a little bit harder than a sit-up. It's a lot more hip flexors and lower abs, and then a run still.
Let me ask you this, because I see from what you mentioned there, sled movement and that translation of force. Obviously, the core is going to be a huge part of all those movements, because I could see, power lifters notorious for being powerful, but and athletes and bodybuilders are notorious for being powerful, but they don't translate weight and power well, because their core ends up being a weak component. In that sled, in that movement of translation of forces, what I'm getting is that the military now sees the huge importance of being able to push and move dynamics across the distance, right? At the same time, like sled movement, right? Is that what I'm getting? Or is that, and how is it that we can strengthen their core? And what is your philosophy on that?
Yeah, so the military really just wanted the test to be more athletic-based, strength-based, movement-based than it is right now. Because, like I said, right now it's push-ups, sit-ups, and run. That's it. 3 exercises, and you're done. So they wanted it to be more strength-based with the trap bar deadlift, more power-based with the med ball throw, and then anaerobic capacity is measured with that sled drag movement. It's 5 exercises. So it's a sprint, and then the sled drag, and then a carry, then a shuffle. And then a carry, and then another sprint. So 5 exercises, 25-meter lane. So it's a lot more anaerobic capacity. You have to be able to transition from that into the aerobic run, which is still a 2-mile run at the end. There's a lot more training that goes into it.
I'm excited, man. I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to look at the beginning of this, the time you get them, and by the time you're done, these people can push something, man.
Yep. So there's a lot more that goes into it, and the core training does play a big part. The leg tuck is way, way more difficult than the sit-ups are, right? So there's a lot of people that can't even do one leg tuck. And it's a lot more difficult. It involves a lot more muscle groups. You got to get a little bit of a pull-up along with the hip flexors flying up, the lower abs engaging. It's a lot more fully involved than the sit-up is. So we try to do a lot of stuff to strengthen the core. We do a lot of med ball slams. We do a lot of, obviously, a lot of true core training. But we work a lot more on core stability than getting them into a lot of flexion. They've been doing sit-ups for years. A lot of them have low back pain because of that, because they're so much into that low back flexion, which I'm not really a big fan of. So we do a lot more core stability type stuff, and then a lot more like dynamic core. So, your weighted abs, your hanging stuff, whether it's, hanging from the bar and just doing knees to chest, and med ball stuff.
Hey, I really believe that what he just said was a huge component. Now, he has spent his whole life understanding body dynamics, and he ended up understanding, and now the military gets it in a different level. The translation of force comes from the core. It is huge. When you hear med ball slams, that is a body that's going to its fullest out and slamming in full range of motion. When you're seeing hip flexes, you're pulling that hip to the furthest, deepest dungeon of movement, to the furthest extreme on the outside. So to be able to do that, to be able to translate weight and slowed and sled movement, you're going to need a powerful core. The dynamics of it is the ability to move it through time and space at a certain rate of speed. How long you do it, you can do it a little bit, that's strength. But power means you can translate it over 25 feet or so and hit back and forth. So we're really pushing the body to a level that is amazing. I have sat down with certain patients of mine, and they find that theory, and I found it to be very interesting, that deep tuck, the knee tuck, and the deep flexion movements. Where did that philosophy come from? And you have, as a physiologist and a nutrition strength coach, how did that come in? Where did that come from that they realized that those particular movements, the slam ball, as well as the deep tuck, became a crucial component in the military action?
So I know the people are, Major Matthews, that actually used to run H2F. She's transferred over to a different side of the military now. But she used to work at the Olympic training facility in Colorado, and I know she helped develop the test. So I would guess, I don't know for sure, but I would guess she played a big role in that.
Yeah.
Because she, does know a lot more about that side of things. I know she helped create, with the power throw and stuff.
What's her name? Shout out again.
Major Matthews.
Major Matthews. Okay.
So we met her. She came down. I think it was a little bit before Taylor got here.
Yeah.
So, but she
Christine's
came down and
her
talked to
first
us.
Name.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she came down and talked to us and explained, about the test and why they were doing it and whatever. And she played a big part in developing a test because of her background.
Have you guys gone to Colorado Springs before to take a look at the Olympic Center?
I have not.
I have not either.
All right, well,
I would really like to though.
You know what? I got to go there, but there, I got to watch from outside inward, and I got to tell you, you can see top athletes from around the world. I mean, from power lifters, but you can see that they're not very big in the sense of muscular build, but you can see that every athlete had a trainer with them, and usually it's a physical therapist that was right with them, and they were talking mechanics and movements, and these athletes and all the sports that they have, you see, just like amazing. It's almost like watching something out of an amazing superpower show where you see these athletes running from all different directions, and these are the top athletes in the world training in the centers, from swimmers to high bolt, whatever the sport is, I can imagine. But you can see them training in the center, and they really focus on range of motion. And you can see the physical therapist showing the motion, and actually the intensity of the movement is really, really important. So that science of deep tuck and translation of force is huge now. And it's amazing that now to be able to do that is at the forefront of the military's progression. Let me ask you this: now that you know and your science and understanding is about the youth, how do you correlate that and take me into progression of how to get kids, let's say a high school kid, into doing that particular component of translation of forces so that we can make them great at being a lineman or just torquing the heck out of someone in wrestling, kind of that deal?
So you made mention the range of motion. I'm a really, really big guy that believes in mobility. I get made fun of a lot for it because I personally take about 20 minutes to even get ready to start lifting.
Wait. How many minutes? You're an athlete.
About 20 to even get ready to start lifting.
Okay, so right off the bat, I have to stop here. There's a lot of people at CrossFit that are always late for class, right? And they come in, and the class starts at 6, and they're just throwing their clothes on, and they jump in. No warm-up, no nothing. Okay, so this is for them. Tell me a little bit about the warm-up and the getting ready.
So I do a lot of mobility work. I do a lot of mobility work with my athletes, whether it was at the collegiate level or here. So mobility is just movement through a full range of motion, right? So if you're strong and stable through an entire range of motion, then the force is going to translate better, then the health is going to stay around. So you're going to be able to withstand lifting weight through that range of motion. So we do a lot of shoulder range of motion. We do a lot of hips, and we do a lot of thoracic spine. So those are 3 areas that I firmly believe that need to be worked on a lot. A lot of people also have some ankle issues and things like that in a deep squat. So that's something we focus on as well, but that's more of a person-to-person basis, not really a full group thing. So as far as like a high school athlete goes, those things would be extremely important, being able to do that. So, if a guy is really mobile, but he can still get after it in the weight room, lift a lot, he's going to have a lot better chance, especially as a wrestler or a lineman, at getting into those weird positions and being able to handle that weird position and get out of it and get the guy out of it with him. Whether it's a lineman pushing somebody to the ground or, like you said, or a wrestler really trying to get after somebody.
Ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorphs in terms of the squatting, because that's one of the basic stuff. I'm a squat guy, so I've always been a squat guy. When you look at someone who's really tall and lanky, how do you adapt their mechanics?
So, like I said, I really like to start with the goblet squat and really break down mechanics in that. So they're not, it's easier to break down mechanics because they're not loading their spine. I can really fix and play with their mechanics a little bit there. Once somebody's under the bar, there's only so much I can do changing mechanics, right? So I need to make sure they're correct before they get under it. So when it comes to that, I'm really trying to make sure that they sit back, that their hips are moving correctly. They're not first creating the knee bend. So a lot of tall guys create that knee bend first because they think I have to get down. So their first move is knee bend. It's not hips back and then start to slide down. So something that I cue is really, kind of pretend there's a wall about a foot behind you, and you want to sit your butt back and touch that wall, and then from there, it's sliding down.
Nice.
That's something I like to cue just to get that first movement to be the hips. A lot of guys, like I said, bend that knee first, and if they do that, then they're going to sit straight down. Their knees are way out over their toes. A lot of times because of that, they're getting a little bit of inversion in their ankles, so it's going to cause a lot of different issues with that. And tall guys are the main proponent of that because of the way their hips are sitting up so high. They think just drop. They don't think sit back.
I got to tell you, I could sit here and talk for over an hour. We've been over at least 60 minutes here, and people are going to look at me, and YouTube's going to shut me out. But I got to tell you, this has been literally an exciting moment because between the both of you, I feel like I'm in a show of Jumanji of knowledge. You know, it's like I just opened up a Pandora, and you guys are full of knowledge that is great. Again, I got to tell you, El Paso has these individuals. If you know, again, the information will be on there for them if you want to communicate with them. I got to tell you, we have them. We have such great talents, such smart individuals out there. Birds of a feather flock together. So for the both of you, I can see how you guys migrated into appreciating the levels of vast knowledge and in the directions that you have. For both of you, I honestly see you guys being PhDs in whatever you guys do. So it's only one step away from being PhDs. I will say that strength coaches are different kind of characters, huh? They're just different, man. There's no joke. They're serious. This is life-threatening, and when you're under that bar, they want to take care of you. So they're the most compassionate people, and they're the most serious of all people. And as you said, in the gym, basically everyone seeks out both of you guys for the greater order. That is what you guys do. You guys have the great knowledge, and I've been a big proponent of great order rules. So you guys have been pulled in through whatever the sources are to bring you to create great order for these young kids and young men so that they can perform the best that they can in the world that they have to go into. So I got to tell you, thank you guys. Thank you. I know that that this information was something that correlates to children. I could open up each one of those conversations and open it up for another hour each. So Taylor, I got to tell you, thank you so much for bringing us some knowledge, and I look forward to talking to you guys some more in the future, and bringing you in and breaking it up into a different, because we talked about the leg, we talked about the knees, we talked about nutrition. Each one of these are directions that we can spend hours talking about, and it's out here. And just to let you know, my goal is to bring it out so that the parents can also see what's important. I think what we got here is good nutrition, good body mechanics, range of motion, dynamic transfer of power, and also the progression from even young, that, you know, you can't be accused of abusing your children when you put them under a weight machine if you have the understanding is the proper mechanics and the right age and the right dynamics of it. So nutrition plays a huge role. I always knew that the core held the secret. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but when God put the baby, he put it where? He put it in the core. Yeah. Okay, so when you look at it, the Orientals called it the chi, the center of the power, right? In Kung Fu, watch the hips, where you can see where the guy's going, because the center of the order rules. In sports, in translating, and when your life depends on it, your core, it has to be one of the most important components as to where you translate force, and reaction time comes from there. As a matter of fact, it's the basis of what the body dynamics is. The pelvics, the hips, the range of motion, and the knees, those are the sciences that these young individuals have brought in, the nutrition of it. Because when it comes down to circulation, you know, what's in the circulation, the food, the stuff that you put in that hole in your face, and the rest, and the sleep, and the water, and the hydration. What I'm very pleased about is that I'm a lot older, and I appreciate the level of youth and youngness in them, so to speak, that is going to be changing the world for the future individuals and families around El Paso and in the regions that this kind of can reach. So thank you guys. I appreciate your information, and I'm a fan of both of you guys, by the way, okay? Because you guys are amazing talent that, I got to tell you, I do have a window before you were here in 1990s where there was a different world. El Paso is different. And Sylvester Reyes, by the way, that's the senator that I wanted to call out. It was his dream to make that military force out here and make it as big as it was. It's got a long history, but in that impact of those big centers, those training centers, was this dream. So I got to tell you, for that senator, I don't know if he anticipated you guys coming, but he did create the great order so that you guys would come and share your knowledge. So I wish you the best, and thank you guys for everything you guys have offered. And I look forward to hearing from you the best. And thank you, Kenna. Thank you for everything, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.